Hi, hello. Welcome to my January wrap-up. You might see some colorful lines because I have sun catchers on my window and the sun is coming in. So, I read 10 books in January. I have some of them physically here with me. The other ones will be listed here. And I'm going to give them to you in lowest rated to highest rated. And yeah. So let's go. Let's begin. Also, if I look down, I have a little bit of notes. Can you hear the notes? Down here. Because, you know, I always treat this as what? A FaceTime vibe. So, first, lowest rating was Double Apex. Okay. I don't recommend this. Please don't read this. Not a good time. But essentially, the synopsis. It's a Formula One romance. And it's a race engineer and a driver, kind of like enemies to lovers, kind of annoyed type deal. It's more like she's annoyed at him and he just exists and likes her. And they go on to have a romance. Jump scare. Sorry, editing me coming in because I realized I forgot to tell you about Off Track. Okay, this is another Formula One romance. Also, take a shot of water every time I say Formula One romance and or next. Please. Stay hydrated, babes. Okay, so this one is predominantly an F1 story with a subplot of romance. When I tell you this girly pop committed to the bit, I fully mean it. She gave me an entire schedule of like 23 races. She gave me 10 teams with 18, 19 drivers. All together. She lays it out to you in the front. I was, honestly, when I first read it, I said, yes, I love the commitment to the bit. But then we got to reading, and I didn't love it as much. Because if you watch Formula One, obviously there are 10 teams and 20 drivers. And it takes a while to grasp the sport like it does anything when you're new to it. The only benefit being like there's an entire Drive to Survive, which people hate on Drive to Survive, whatever. But it gives people a good entry point into the sport to understand a little bit of like what's going on and gives them like a launch point. She gives you no launch point because all of these teams are made up. So when they get into collisions or whatever, I'm just like, I don't know who this is and what is happening. It just sounds like, I don't know. I don't think it added to the story at all. Also, it's slow burn. Very slow burn. So much so that I thought this was going to be closed door. It's not closed door. And I think they share their first kiss like 75% way in, 71% in. And they are broken up by the third act breakup at 80% of the book. So it was an okay time. Yeah. Not the worst one, but not the best one I read. That's for sure. So... all right, now back to past me. Next is Cross the Line, also a Formula One romance. This one is brother's bestie, that trope, but also she's the social media manager of, not necessarily the team, but for him specifically, because he has a PR issue of sorts. And instead of hiring the team, like the PR people that the team wants him to, because he feels like he's going to be sabotaged because the team is not his biggest fan, he proceeds to hire his best friend's little sister. Boom, bada bing. Next, Stranger Skies. Okay, this one, honestly, I don't even know what kind of song. This is book 2 in the Drowned Gods trilogy. Was not a good time, but in this one, so at the end of book 1, obviously you learn a lot of information, and we have left the original world in a sorts to traverse into another world. And in book 2, the amount of world building for the additional world that we're in was exhausting, but there's that. And then also our other main characters who are not in an additional world end up time traveling of sorts. I think 200 years behind the current timeline of the first book. And so they're both working different aspects of the plot. And I only cared for the fellas that went back into the past and not the folks who went off into the other world, because I was so over it. I skipped every single chapter. At one point, I did not care. But that's as much as I can give you without giving like spoilers. Next is Pole Position. This one, Formula One romance again, if you can't tell. It's like enemies to lovers again, but in the sense that they're both on the same team. One's an older guy at the end of his career. One's a younger guy getting his like chance to step up, and they are both on the same team, and they happen, the younger guy idolizes and kind of likes the older guy, and the older guy just thinks that the younger guy is a big joke. So it's enemies to lovers in the sense that there's a giant miscommunication. They don't really vibe because they're misunderstanding each other a lot. But it was a really good time. I have to say, I was shocked about how much I liked this one. Honestly, it was out of all of the Formula One romances that I read, that one was my absolute favorite. Next, I rated more highly Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear. This one, I wanted to like it more than I actually did, but I did have a good time. This follows Nadia, and this one, if you don't know, in the Wayward Children series, one book you spend at the school with the wayward children, and the other books you're in the world with the children or a new child. Depends on where it goes. And in this one, we're in a world, so we follow Nadia. You've seen Nadia, I believe, in book 3, so like Beneath the Sugar Sky, which is my lowest rated one out of all 10 of these. And you finally get kind of like her backstory of how she ended up in the original, in her world, and does she end up going, yeah, and how she ends up back in the real world to end up at the school. So I was excited because it was a drowned girly, and I love the drowned worlds, but it was okay. Honestly, not my least favorite and not my absolute favorite of the series. Next, we have Little Thieves, which is the Goose Girl retelling. I don't really know what that fairy tale is, but alas, this apparently is a retelling of sorts. You meet our main character, Vanga, who is living a double life of sorts, and she ends up stealing something that she's not supposed to steal, and ends up interacting with a lesser god who kind of curses her of sorts to grow jewels. And if she does not fix what she has stolen, then she will become a gem and die by the full moon. So that's the main plot point. This was really good. I ate this up for sure. Done and dusted. Okay, I had read, what are the other ones? Swift and Saddled and Lost and Lassoed first. I came back to Done and Dusted. I did not read this first because I didn't think it was worth my time, because it's brother's best friend. And I'm finding that maybe I don't mind that trope so much. I thought I wouldn't like it. It's not bad. But here you follow Emmy. What is his name? Oh, Brooks. You follow Emmy. She hurts herself riding a horse. This takes place in like Wyoming, I believe. These are in Wyoming. Yeah, I don't know. And she has to come home, and she's coming home and having to see her crush from a long time ago, which is her brother's best friend, Brooks, who happens to be a bartender at the one and only bar in this tiny town. And if you're from tiny towns, then you know. And then if not, then you know. So they obviously fall in love. It was a good time. I kind of am sad I didn't start with this one. Although, to be honest, I think if I would have started with this one, it would have made Swift and Saddled even more cringy. Because when I read Swift and Saddled, it was cringe. But I'm glad I pushed through to get to Lost and Lassoed, because that was delicious. And I cannot wait for Wild and Wrangled. Wrangled and Wild? Wild and Wrangled. Either way, a good time. Loved it. Next is We Refuse. I originally got this from the library, and there were so many good quotes that I went and got myself a physical copy of the book. And so this is a forceful history of Black resistance. And so in this nonfiction, she goes through different chapters of the way in which the Black community has refused, said no, and protected their progress under white supremacy. And so the first one, the introduction, is my ancestor's refusal, where she goes and she like talks about a story about her great grandmother and why she has a limp and why that is important in a sense, and like how she came to have that limp. And it like leads you then into chapter 1, which is about revolution, chapter 2, which is about protection, which is essentially to let you know that revolution can happen, but the only way, like, revolution doesn't just stay revolutionary, you have to protect it, hence protection. And it's followed by force, because sometimes protection is in fact forceful. And the next one is flight, because sometimes resistance is leaving. And the last one is joy, which is the, I don't want to say backbone, but essentially says that like none of this would be possible if you don't take the, have inherently like joy, but specifically like black joy, and what makes black joy so important to continuing on like revolutionary movements. And the last one is a drowning proscript, which feels very fitting because it talks about how when you're a lifeguard, sometimes they tell you to be mindful of people who are drowning because they can drown you. Sometimes it's easier to wait till the drowned have like drowned to save them so they don't take you down with you. And that's what it essentially talks about. And I feel like that's just so very fitting for this political moment we are in, because currently right now this is not a lesson black people need to learn. As a lot of people have said, this is clearly a lesson of these political times for white folks to learn. And so people are drowning. Do you know what I mean? If you know, you know. And if not, I don't really know how to spell it out. Also, not that I'm big on this channel, but will YouTube catch said words? I don't know. But I recommend this one. It was, I wouldn't say an easy read, but it's a short nonfiction. And very of the times, too. So, there's that. And the highest rated book that I have is my reread of The Raven Boys. I read this, I think, last year? Maybe, or in 2013. 2023. And I was just looking for a comfort read, so I started this. And I genuinely forgot how atmospheric this writing is and how I really enjoy it. This is essentially about rich kids. Well, 2 rich kids and 2 poor kids. But you have the Raven Boys who all attend this like prestigious high school. And one of the main characters, Gansey, is on the search for Glendower, which is like this magical king. And he's the richest of them all, and he kind of takes them, he collects his guy friends and also collects Blue, who is a main character, female main character, whose like relatives are psychics, and she happens not to be a psychic, she just happens to be an amplifier. And so they all get invested in searching for Glendower and like the mysterious ways of like small town Virginia. It's a good time. So I really enjoyed it. I feel like that doesn't really sum it up, but the entire series is about looking for Glendower and all the tiny little adventures and budding romances, surprisingly. And really, to me, the biggest yummy of it all is just like the writing and like, I don't know. So that is what I read in January. I can't believe I read 10 books in January, really starting off strong. My goal is to hit 96 books this year, which requires me to read about, I think, 8 to 10 books a month, which is kind of lofty for me, but here we sit. So let me know what your highest rated book was or lowest rated book was for this month, if you care to. If not, that's cool. I'm just here living my best life, and hopefully you are too. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.